think long-term, stay laser focused, solve a problem, right? And be obsessed with solving that one thing. And it's just a matter of time for success.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Adrian, what's up, man? Oh, dude, this is so good.
Reach.
Literally one of my good buddies on the show, so really excited to have you here. Author of Free PR. Cameron Herold co-authored with you. Adrian Salamunovic. That's a cool way to say it.
Yeah.
I know it's whatever. You were like, you don't sound like the guy that would say that. And I mean, the people you got to endorse your book. I mean, just incredible people like Vern Harnish, Peter Shankman, Richard Karlgaard, and Dan Martell. Look at that.
You're on there.
That was fun, man. I appreciate that. So obviously you're a PR guy or you wouldn't have written the book on it.
That's right.
But for those that might not be familiar with your work, background, serial entrepreneur, give us the quick 60 seconds.
Yeah, actually, I don't consider myself a PR guy. I'm a founder like you that had to teach myself PR in order to get my message out because I bootstrapped a lot of companies. And yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I like to start companies, build companies, work with entrepreneurs. I started a company called CanvasPop, just exited, so that's good.
Congrats, man. I'm a customer. I love it. I use it for all my canvases. Every Christmas, we buy a bunch of stuff, put it all around our house. And you also said, you guys did the pillows, right?
Yeah, we did.
You sent me
those just for you.
Pillows, man.
We did those just for you. We did a couple of.
Dude, I appreciate
I'm wearing my Martell swag
Always
right
be
here.
branding. If anybody knows, and you know this, if you see somebody with my logo, it's because I gave them that.
That's
you
right.
can't buy it. People are like, "Where's your merch store?" I'm like, "It doesn't work like that in my world.
Should
It's
set
a
one
gift."
up.
Now I want to keep gifting. You were like, "Give me." So I got some Yeti mugs coming for you.
Awesome.
Some hats. But in regards to PR, because Cameron has always been known, that's one of his things that he likes to talk about.
Yep.
What did you guys learn at CanvasPop? Is it CanvasPop the company that you kind of really, figured that out?
Well, I'll tell you the story. It started with DNA 11, a company that makes art from your DNA.
This is true. I remember that. Yeah.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
And like anything, it was just an idea, something fun to do. We were taking DNA samples just to remind you, take a DNA sample, take a photo of it and turn it into a piece of art, right?
Okay.
It wasn't supposed to be a company.
What would that, back in the day, what did that cost?
That's funny. We started them at $1,200 and sold like 2. And then I said, well, we got a pricing problem. So we said, let's split it in half and do it for $600. And we started selling like crazy. So the average price was around $500 or $600.
Yeah.
So it was designed for the mainstream markets. This is before 23andMe. So we were doing one of the first consumer genomics companies, actually.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like there was real costs in doing this DNA test.
There was. And, we're one of the first companies to do consumer genomics as e-commerce, like where you would order a kit, get the kit. This is before 23andMe, so we had to figure out a lot of stuff. And it wasn't supposed to be a business, but it turned out doing over $1 million in revenue in about 14 months. So, a lot of SaaS companies have a hard time scaling up to $1 million in 14 months. And we did it without any funding, zero funding. Was before Kickstarter. Facebook was just kind of starting then, and so we had to figure it out. We had to figure out how to get the word out. Well, DNA 11, it's a pretty remarkable company, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people will talk.
It's a good story.
It's a good story.
Yeah.
So then when we started CanvasPop, which we spun out of DNA 11, and that's almost 8 years ago, 9 years ago. Wanted to see if we could do it again. Can we do it with something that's much more ordinary, printing photos, an online photo printing company?
Yeah.
And we did. We got even more PR. And what I learned is if you know how to tell a story, if you know how to tell your story, whether it's to investors, whether it's to your employees, stakeholders, journalists, you're a more powerful company. And if you can learn how to make anything remarkable by using angles, like understanding how to tell your story properly, then people will pay attention, and then people will spread the word for you. And that's all earned media and PR is about.
How does somebody take a boring thing and turn it into a powerful story? Yeah. What's the elements of a powerful story from your perspective?
I think anything can be interesting. So an example is my co-author, Cameron Herold, was the COO for almost a decade at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. It's a junk removal service. If there's anything less interesting, in my opinion, than a junk removal, I don't know, find it, right? It's pretty unsexy. But they were able to get a ton of press by creating the story behind the brand, by doing charity events, by doing stunts. So even if the thing that you're selling isn't that interesting, you can make it interesting by telling the stories of the founders, the story behind how you started the company. You could talk about your company culture. You can talk about other things that are going on in society. Like right now, we're we're on a podcast, right?
Yeah.
You don't keep telling a Dan Martell story over and over. You invite interesting people onto your podcast.
So there's always a way to make something interesting.
Always.
And what about like the folks that don't consider themselves good storytellers? Like what are they? What are the elements of a good story that you feel the media is going to pick up on?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I mean, there's in the book we talk about the 5 different types of angles or stories that you can come up with.
Yeah.
But one of the more popular ones is the idea of the slaying the dragon, as they say. You know, the person that had
David
a
and
challenge.
Goliath?
Sorry?
Like the David and Goliath?
Exactly. The
Okay,
David and
the
Goliath.
underdog.
The underdog. We
actually had Toby on a few episodes ago, and his thing was we're going to arm the rebels.
Oh, interesting.
Against Amazon.
Oh, right. So you have the enemy.
Yeah,
The
Amazon's the
common
animal.
enemy.
Arm the rebels
Yes.
because they're taking over this whole e-commerce and they're squeezing the margins. We want to bring it back to the small people. And when he said that, it was like, oh, that's a good hook.
perfect.
Same thing, right?
Yeah, and Shopify are great storytellers.
Mm.
Harley also great at sort of identifying that angle and then telling
Amplify
that story.
it.
Amplifying
Oof,
it and
world
telling
class,
it.
world class.
That's right. So we're all good storytellers. I think we tell ourselves, oh, I'm an introvert or I'm not good at storytelling.
Oh,
but
interesting. You think if you're human, you're communicating your storytelling.
absolutely. That's what humanity is based on, right? Humanity has existed on a series of stories being told over generations, and that's what books are about. That's what movies are about. That's what all entertainment's based on. At the end of the day, we're all humans, and we all relate to each other through storytelling, right?
It's almost like stories are the glue of the learnings. Like, because really, if you think about like back in the day with like whatever tribes, they had to teach the next generation to don't eat this mushroom, don't do this. And it was almost like story was the thing that we could remember to pass along
That's
those
right.
lessons.
That's right.
How does that, translate into PR?
Great.
Yeah.
Great question. All right, that's a great transition right there because, in fact, you just hit the nail on the head. If you want to get a lot of PR, what you want to do is not say, "Look what I'm selling."
Look how cool we are, yeah.
Right? Look how cool we are. Look how much we've raised. Or you can get PR for those things, but really, the ultimate way to get PR is to teach people something. Right? You're going to get on more podcasts if you say, "Look, I know how to help you raise money." If you tune into the podcast, you're going to learn something, right? And so what I always tell people is if you want to be very, very successful in PR and storytelling, always think what's in it for the audience, right? Don't think about what you want to show off. Think about what information you might have, what kind of value you have that you can pass on to others. And that's how you're going to get into Inc. magazine. That's how you're going to get on podcasts like this, is you want to help others, right? And that's a number, and you know that very well. But that's the one big idea I want to share with everybody is when you're pitching the media, think of the knowledge that you have that you can bring value to
their reader,
to
their audience, their viewer.
Yeah, and talk about.
I remember, I think it was Mike McDermott a few episodes ago from FreshBooks. He said, because I asked him, I said, why do you, he went on this like workshop tour. He speaks at all events.
Yep.
And he gave credit to 37 Signals about the idea. He said, when we started, we realized we could either outspend or we could outteach.
Yep.
And it was through that, education is just such a critical thing. And I guess what you're saying is we all have something that we know. If we built a company, we probably know how to do a thing in our company.
Exactly.
There's some, it's either getting press or, productivity, whatever your thing is. And if you could align with the outlet that has that audience interested in that topic, and then you just wrap your business into that narrative,
Exactly.
That's how you get.
That's how you get outside audiences. Now, what's really popular now and has been for the last few years is content marketing, right? You develop the content and then you propagate.
You build
that
your own
content.
media outlet almost.
That's right. You're really great at that, right? You have your YouTube channel, you have your Medium that you're always posting information, and that is really great to have that home base.
Yeah.
What this book and what we're about really is do that for sure. Do that, but at the beginning, you can use other outlets that already have huge audiences and leverage those audiences to bring them into you, right? So that's what we're about. We're about big outlets, going where your audience is, getting in the TechCrunches, the Incs, the Fortunes, the Forbes, et cetera, teaching you how to do that to drive that traffic back to you. And so you got to do both. You got to do the external stuff and the internal stuff.
Adrian, in the world of less people reading newspapers and maybe watching the news,
Yep.
What do you think are the future of media?
Yeah, I think the future.
And how should people think about media? Because I know you have a paid versus earn and
Yeah.
this whole strategy around that model?
It's really multi-channel. I mean, and so you can't rely on one thing anymore, right? When we actually started this company, if you got on Good Morning America with a consumer product or Today's Show, your sales would spike. You'd do $100,000 in a day, right?
If you were an author, you get on Oprah.
Boom, you're fit. Yeah, it's over, right? And so it was a good thing because I was really good at getting on those top tier things, but it was a bottleneck. So it meant only a few people got to get that level of exposure.
Yeah.
Today, even 10 years, if you look 10 years ahead, now any of us can be our own radio station, our own TV station, our own newspaper, our own, right? We could all create our own content. So I do think the future is definitely continuing to create your own brand and your own content.
Yep.
But there are still mediums and there's still trusted publications that are impartial and third party that people trust. If you think of the New York Times or you think of PC Mag. I mean, you want to read a review on software or something like that, or a new piece of hardware, you're going to trust PC Mag over some random blogger, right? Mm-hmm. And so I still believe the big logos, the big media outlets have an intrinsic value. Credibility and third-party credibility that they can bring to you. But you got to go multi-strategy. You can't just do that, just PR. And you can't just do content. And you can't just do paid, or else you'll blow your entire budget. So you need to combine these things, and it's about omni-channel marketing. I think that's the future.
How do you sell a founder on the cost of time or money to do this stuff?
Yeah, well, it's got to be done. I mean, almost every industry, there's exceptions, need to do some form of earned media, right? Some form of PR. And so it's a simple equation of you either hire an agency like everybody else does, and 9 out of 10 times you spend a bunch of money, you get very little results, usually with most PR firms, and the cycle continues, right? Or you can break the madness and say, I'm doing something wrong. I've got a great story. Why are my competitors getting press and we're not? Well, the key in our position, Cameron and I, is what we teach companies to do is bring it in-house. I mean, you bring your content writing probably in-house. You probably have an in-house marketing team. You probably have an in-house graphic designer. Like when you're at that level, you should consider bringing.
Is that like $1 million plus in revenue kind of level?
I think so. I think around $1 million, 100K MRR. If you're SaaS, around 1.2 million, you should be starting to really think about owning your entire marketing stack on the core competency side, right? And that includes communications, PR content, and probably even paid for some people at that level. You want to start bringing that in-house.
Yeah.
But I believe in owning, creating an internal mini agency because. You know, Dan, if you have, and you know this, like you've built a team. And so when you have people that are dedicated to you, they think about you 24/7. They're working for you.
They're seeing those opportunities too.
That's right.
Right? Like it's hard for an agency to see what's happening on a week-to-week basis to go like, oh, that's newsworthy. Thank goodness we saw that. We got to cue that release up.
Exactly. And by having that team next to you, they're breathing, eating, sleeping your culture. So they know they have an intrinsic radar for opportunity. Yeah. And PR and earned media often happens when you don't expect it, right?
It's a creative process.
It's a creative process, also a spontaneous process. Reactive. And having somebody thinking about you that's part of your team is going to get you so many results in the long term. I do think a lot of founders want the quick pill, right?
Yeah.
They say, well, I just want to get some press and I want to move on. But nothing is like that.
They want to pay their 10 grand and retainer, get me on TechCrunch, Inc., blah, blah, blah.
Doesn't work. Right?
And nor does it actually in today's world, I feel like drive a lot of, sales, right? Like it's really this ongoing process. And it's not even about me. I mean, you talk tactically in the book about how to do this. In regards to like a few strategies we can leave listeners with, what are those things if somebody wants to get more press and do it themselves? Are there strategies, tools, outlets?
I like, when I talk about PR, I like to drive ROI, right? Okay. I really do like, and by ROI, I mean strictly revenue, driving real traffic that can convert. And so on that note, I think one of the things I really like to encourage most, your audience is mostly SaaS founders. And so let's just say you have a SaaS product and you know who so first of all, know your audience. I'm assuming you have market fit, and I'm assuming you know who your audience is.
Yeah.
Providing you have those two, you're ready to do some PR. And one of the things that we've seen work really well is going out and essentially finding your lookalike, finding the company that's closest to you but isn't a direct competitor, right? So I've got a company that I advise called HiveAge. They're a FreshBooks competitor type of idea.
Yep.
And HiveAge's lookalike might be Expensify, right? The company that does expense tracking.
Corporate
So,
expenses,
so let me, I'll kind of walk you through this real quick.
Yeah, for
the
sure.
idea is find your lookalike. Your lookalike's a company that looks like you, is an aspirational version of your company. They're getting a lot of press, and they're in a similar industry.
Yeah.
The idea being that if a journalist wrote about Expensify, they're likely to be interested in HiveAge.
That industry,
Or that industry, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So you find your lookalike, you go to Google News, and you search for your lookalike and see who's writing about your lookalike.
Do you use a domain, like their domain or their name or?
Their brand name. So if you know who your lookalike is, Expensify, you go to Google News, type in Expensify, and you find the last 6 to 12 months of journalists that have written about Expensify.
Cool.
You make sure they're positive articles, and then you just literally go journalist by journalist and pitch them and say, hey, you wrote about Expensify, you're probably interested in my accounting software because they're similar. Here's how we're different or better or whatever. You have to have your unique differentiator.
Yeah.
You do that 100 times, you're gonna get 6 or 7 stories, right?
Whoa.
It's a lot of effort.
Yeah, but I mean, 6 or 7 stories. Again, what's powerful, I think, Adrian, is the fact that you get to leverage somebody else's audience.
That's right.
I mean, that's like whatever outlet is, even if they get, 20,000 uniques a month, you get eyes on you. That's
and the link juice.
Yeah.
So you get the SEO authority, you get the traffic you can plug in. Now, speaking of plugging in existing traffic, similar strategy, we've talked about this before, is sort of the idea of leveraging reviews.
Yeah.
And I think reviews are the most powerful editorial that you can get because let's be honest, when people are reading reviews, they're interested in purchasing. The purchase intent is very
high
strong.
intent for reviews.
Very high intent.
So you got the G2 crowds, the Get apps, all these different review sites now in the B2B SaaS space.
Capterras,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But no, in the consumer space, you've got all these top 10 sites, listicle sites.
Yeah.
I mean, and here's how you find them. It's really simple. You take your product category. Let's say, again, it's accounting software.
Say
and
top.
Top accounting software, best accounting software, or accounting software reviews, right?
Yep.
And you just go find positions editorial. Of course, you don't want it to be your competitors, but your editorial's position 1, 3, and 5 are editorial. You click on those, you pitch them, and you say, I've noticed you're reviewing accounting software. We don't see our platform.
Oh, you're saying reviews, not review sites. You're talking about reviews of your competitors.
Of your competitors.
Editorials.
Roundups, right? There'll be 5 or
Roundups,
6 or
top
7
10,
software platforms reviewed on one page. Why don't you get in there and be number 1 or even number 9? Like,
be on the list.
That's right. So you're interjecting on an existing. First of all, that page has high link authority
Because it showed up on the first search.
It showed up. It's getting tens of thousands of views per month for your category with people with a high buy intent. If you could just slide in there, if you can convince
Do people
that journalist,
update old posts often?
they do.
See, I think that would be a limiting belief that people would probably have that would stop them from doing this. They're like, well,
Nope. They love keeping it fresh. That's how it stays.
keep it fresh.
Yeah. They want to keep those review pages fresh. And if you can slide one of your competitors out and get in that and say they only have 10 slots, you do it by bribing them, essentially. And what I mean by bribe is giving them free product, giving them free access to your software. And that's a way that you kind of get them to review it.
Build a relationship too. I mean, they
right.
might not even know who the other founders are of those products.
Correct. And here's the other thing. If you get in there, let's just say they update that review.
Slide into the list.
You're sliding in. You're just sliding in. But the other thing is, let's just say they can update that page. Maybe they'll write a feature review on just you because they want to do, so you don't know until you ask. And I think the misconceptions, and this is the real idea that I want to kind of get across to your audience, is that PR is difficult or has to be done by an agency. No one is better telling the story than the founder or the founding team or a member of your own marketing team. So that's a myth. PR is super easy if you know how.
They think it's about relationships.
It isn't. It isn't. The relationship does almost nothing for you for getting PR. You got to be able to tell a good story. So I believe that any company can do their own PR. I think they can do it more cost effectively and get better results long term by bringing it in-house. And that's what the book and the course is all about, really. It's that simple of an idea. Is you do your own marketing in-house, you should be doing your own PR in-house as well. And it's something you can do all year.
So are there sites, again, I'm asking you questions, we've talked about this at length, off air, because you're one of my good buddies, but sites that people could use like Haro, other tools Just Reach Out or other, like what are the tools that people could look at to help them with this?
Yeah, I mean, there is Just Reach Out. It's a cool platform. The Just Reach Out is a platform that allows you to scan for opportunities and manage PR opportunities. So it's a platform. It's
one of my coaching clients, full disclosure.
That's right.
But that's why I know
Good
about
guy.
it. Yeah.
Great
Dimitri.
guy, and
Yeah.
a very interesting product. Haro is free. Help a Reporter Out is worth signing up for.
Is it still worth it? I don't know. Like
the quality's gone. Peter Shankman is actually the founder of Haro.
There he is. Yeah.
Wrote our forward for the book.
Oh, he wrote the forward.
He wrote the forward.
Nice.
It's written by Peter. I think what's happened with Haro is the Cision bought them, which is a large PR database company, and the quality of the leads are not going to be all like Inks and Fortune and Wired magazine, but occasionally they do come through.
Yeah.
So what I usually do is I only pitch the publications. Like say somebody's looking for an opportunity, I look for tier ones, right?
Yeah.
They often disclose
who the company,
who the publication is. So I only pitch tier one now at this point, but if you invest 5 minutes a day to scan those Haro emails, you go to Help a Reporter Out.
Subscribe.
Subscribe. It's worth doing.
Yeah.
Often what I'll do is I'll get a junior marketing associate at my company or the person in charge of PR if you have that person.
Yeah.
Just scan those.
Or
every
even
day.
your virtual assistant. I mean, somebody go pay attention.
And it's easy,
Yeah.
right? And one hit in Inc. or Fortune or TechCrunch, sometimes TechCrunch, I mean, it's occasional, but you want to look for these opportunities, and no matter what, you're going to get link juice from these opportunities. So Haro's still relevant.
Yeah.
I think there's just a lot of tools out there. We like Muckrack for email list management. It's great product.
Yeah.
I think though that this industry of sort of PR management and outreach has to be disrupted. There hasn't been a major.
I also coach Presley. I know they do online media kits.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're more of they started like that, and now they're doing for really large companies like Shimano and others. They manage their press rooms, more or less, right?
Yep.
And that's a great company, but that's not an outreach solution, right?
But they're just even the PR back in the day when I did at scale, like there weren't really tools.
Nope.
No, you just like spreadsheets, emails.
That's right.
And you made it work.
And you know what? That still works.
Yeah.
To be honest, like
you don't need to buy stuff if you want to just put in the time.
You don't if you have the time. Yeah, it's totally worth doing. And I tell a lot of founders, like building media lists seems like a waste of time, but if you're under $1 million in revenue and you're spending an hour in the evening building a media list, what you're doing is research, right? You're out there researching.
For your own market. Like you should know this stuff.
That's right.
Like if you can't tell me the top 10 books for your category, it's amateur hour.
That's right.
Like, I mean, you should know what are the top blogs, what are the top online Facebook groups, what are the top thought leaders,
and
YouTube channels.
Many don't.
They don't know.
They don't know what their audience is.
I coach them and I'm like, hey, like if you can't tell me this, then how do you truly know your customer?
That's right. And so doing media research, going out there and researching the review sites that we just talked about.
It's just
market research.
It's called foundational marketing.
You should be doing it every evening.
And I mean, one of the ways I suggest is they could just ask their customers. If they're like, well, how do I find that out? It's like, send a survey, get them, what events did they go to?
Common sense.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on podcasts?
Podcasts are great. I love podcasts. I think this year is the year of the podcast.
It's crazy.
It's huge.
Because it's been forever, and it was like, is it ever going to be a thing? But there's something in the water now where podcasts are getting, I think it's probably Spotify's distribution. Like there's a lot of distribution now for audio, and it's the intimacy level of it. Like people that's why I wanted to do this podcast to make sure that the audio quality was great. You know, like it's neat.
It's a great investment because, I mean, for a few $1,000s, you can set up a podcast, right? Get your own audience. So both doing podcasts and hosting podcasts, I'm a huge fan of.
I'm curious about your thoughts on being on podcasts.
Well, I'm here, right?
Yeah. So, for founders.
For founders, absolutely. Yeah. It's great. I mean, first of all, usually, we have cameras here today, but usually you don't even have to comb your hair, right? Yeah. It's easy to do. You can do it from anywhere.
Yeah.
I have, a Yeti mic in my office. I plug it in. I do podcasts every week.
Yeah.
And it's because it doesn't take a lot of preparation. It's conversational. Yeah. It's evergreen. You can keep reusing it. Mm-hmm. Even if 20 people are listening.
Story.
Practice your storytelling and your pitch,
which
is what we cover in the book as well, is making sure you can
actually bridge to a pitch or
And even if 20 people are listening, here's the thing. If they're listening to that podcast with you speaking on it, you've got a level of engagement that you can't get with any other medium.
It is the most engaged medium, hands down.
Absolutely, right? So I think podcasts, I'm sticking to this. I think this is the year of the podcast. I think the next few years are going to be the year of the podcast. So we're going to see, more programmatic advertising in podcasting. We're going to see more.
It's crazy it hasn't really come out at scale.
It's insane. Yeah. No.
It's still a manual process of like, what are people's rates and negotiating.
It's crazy.
Like where's the AdWords of podcasts?
I don't know. And I don't know why that doesn't exist yet. I mean, companies like, Stitcher and others should be figuring this out. Maybe they are.
Yeah.
Spotify makes it really easy to purchase advertising. Apparently it's super cost effective. Apparently it's super cost effective.
All right,
still.
You might hear some Dan Martell ads coming across your podcast soon.
You should run an experiment. We Matt Whitaker, nonotes.com, Ascent.
Yeah? Okay.
Ascent Compliance and No Notes has been testing it, saying it's getting great conversion on Spotify. But yeah, that's another thing that's got to be disrupted. I mean, somebody needs to create, for you as a podcaster, be able to monetize your old content, the click of a button, but also like as a brand that wanted to sell stuff, I would love to advertise in those in between slots.
Super
on
niche,
podcasts. Yeah, right? Super focused and super targeted. But I'm sure somebody's working on it. But the fact that we don't know who that is means
there's nothing at scale. There's nothing
at scale yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh. What do you? Obviously, I think you've moved on from CanvasPop.
Yeah.
What do you think's next for you?
Well, I mean, we've talked about this offline.
Not that you haven't been keeping busy writing books and all that fun stuff.
No, I mean, I got really burnt out at CanvasPop. I mean, just a decade of working on something I was passionate about and stopped being passionate about. So I was super burnt out, to be honest, like really burnt out. And so I've taken the last year and a bit off. I think I'm going to take another year off, and just when I say off, I mean network, go to conferences, spend some me time,
just
work on fitness.
Not commit to one thing.
Just
advisory,
explore, right? And I think what I'm thinking about is becoming a very proactive investor. So somebody that brings a lot of value to the table, because the idea of just cutting checks and having to say no to 99% of people coming to me, it doesn't excite me. I want to create a platform that brings value, and then in turn, the end of the funnel is investment, right?
Yeah.
We can get people money, invest. So I see some form of high leverage, high value investing. What form that's going to take, whether it's a venture debt company or private equity company or early stage incubator, I don't know yet. But I know I want to work with entrepreneurs. I love working with guys like yourself and collaborating with guys like you. And all of our friends that we work with, it's great to bring them together and help create new entities and new value in the marketplace, and then get paid at the end, right? With the founders, when and if there's a huge exit.
Yeah.
So that excites me. But as a builder, as a company builder, I do struggle with the idea of being on the sidelines and not getting to play the game. Yeah. So we'll figure it out.
When you mentioned you got burnt out, for those listening that might feel that way, what could you have done differently that would have changed that, if anything? I think that's a really insightful kind of question, and I haven't spent enough time thinking about it. But what I would say is play the long game. I think the biggest mistake we can make as founders is thinking the exit's just around the corner, right? And then when you're playing for the exit, you're going to get burnt out because it could be a tunnel, a very long tunnel, right? So you just got to enjoy what you're doing. Make sure you're satisfied from month to month, day to day, year to year, right? Work on the short term, making sure you're happy, you're exercising, you're doing the things you enjoy doing, you're hiring the right team. And then also think long term. View.
Yeah, say I never want to sell
The way I think about it, as you say this, it feels like kind of like riding your clutch.
Interesting.
Right? Because you're like starting and going, Like, right? Because if you're in gear and you're going, there's no friction on the clutch. But if you're like looking at the short term, if something doesn't happen,
you get disappointed.
Yeah, and then you got to go back to the long game again, which means you're in gear, and then you got to change. You know what I mean?
And you lose that momentum. You get that, and that's exactly I think what we were doing. We bootstrapped. We were having a great time. Our founder salaries were terrible. Yeah. We weren't making any money, but we were super happy because we were challenged and we were growing like crazy.
Yeah.
And things got comfortable, right? We started paying ourselves 6-figure salaries. We started, just getting more and more comfortable. And I think comfort is not a great thing when you're building a startup. You want to be hungry and you want to be constantly building, right? So I think lessons learned for me are play the long game. Do not get distracted by shiny objects. That's the biggest thing I've noticed when I look at the pattern recognition of all my friends that have built $100 million plus companies, is they were obsessively focused on the one thing. Right? What we did at CanvasPop, we got a little board of printing photos. We said, oh, we should build a technology platform. We should build an API. We should build a marketplace. We should create an app that has nothing to do with our industry, the PopKey, the GIF app.
Yeah.
I mean, we
you
were
had
doing
like a whole like labs thing going on.
Yeah, we wanted to become BetaWorks. The
Yeah.
problem was we wanted to become XBot or BetaWorks or something like that. And the idea was, wait, we didn't exit this company. What business do we have?
Still have an active entity.
Right. So I'm just being real here.
Yeah.
Is my number one piece of advice to anyone out there listening to this, is even if you're feeling a little, find the innovation within the thing that you're doing. Just don't start doing 4 or 5 different things or breaking things in an agency and a product. Sometimes you have to do 2 things at once at the beginning to get the engine going. But once you found your groove, stay obsessively
That was one thing
focused.
Toby mentioned when we chatted. It was this singular question that is a recursive question that continues to drive his decision making, which was, how do we make it easier for people to build an online business?
Exactly.
And like
Laser
that's
focus.
it. And anywhere there was a friction along that journey, his question to himself and the team was, how do we smooth that bump out?
Yep.
And distribution centers, right? Like like just whenever it comes to that. And I feel like that's an interesting way to kind of like ask yourself, what's the wrong you want to right in the world?
Yep.
And
What's your mission?
Is that interesting enough to keep you focused for the long term?
That's it. So think long term, stay laser focused, solve a problem, right? And be obsessed with solving that one thing. And it's just a matter of time for success. I think some founders think, if I can cast a wider net, if I can open up the market.
You're worried you're missing an opportunity if you don't at least go explore it.
And you've seen this over and over. I mean, the most successful entrepreneurs are laser focused.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, pretty much you can point to any of the people you admire from Elon, et cetera. I mean, he's a bit of a weird one because he does run a couple $1 billion companies.
Richard Branson has like 100 companies, but he's not running 100 companies.
No, and he's laser focused on a brand.
That's right.
That's like underneath the hood, there is a principle, and it looks like that.
Look, if you're worth $1 billion, okay, you get to $1 billion.
You're now allowed to do
Go
that.
ahead. Go ahead and diversify a few companies.
Get a little distracted.
But until then, I stay focused. Like so I do think Elon's not a good example. Richard Branson's not a good example. These guys have built $1 billion companies and then spread their wings.
Yeah. Well, you're right. They had singular.
You're
right.
Before that, it was one thing. And so no, I think laser focus is the one thing I've seen 100% of the time.
And when it comes to back to the PR, if you do get clear on the mission and the wrong you want to right, and that singular focus, then it feels like a snowball could happen. Like it's going to inevitably happen over time because the writers, the space, you know what I mean?
You become the go-to information source.
Oh,
right. So that's exactly what. So we call it the PR flywheel. If you remember that.
Yeah.
So or snowball effect, same thing.
Yeah. The PR flywheel. Break that down for people.
So I mean, when you start off, you're starting from zero. You're not an expert, right?
Yeah.
So you got to tell people you're an expert. Eventually, the journalists will come to you and say, well, you've been pitching us. Okay, fine. We'll let you either write an article for us or we'll write about you. And that's the beginning of the flywheel, right? And then the next one's a little easier because now you have an article you can point to and say, hey, look, Inc. wrote an article about our software. We're credible. So then you're more likely to get more press. So the idea is that getting PR creates more PR, which creates more PR. And before you know it, you're the go-to person in that industry.
You're the thought leader.
You're the thought leader. No one remembers why or how, but it's because you pushed the flywheel. You got it going by self-promoting. I think a lot of brilliant people have a hard time self-promoting. Right?
Everybody, yeah.
Right?
I'm in the same bucket.
But if you don't do it, if Dan
you could be the best kept secret. If you're still a secret, it doesn't serve the business.
It's selfish. You're scared to tell people what you're doing. I think it's selfish to not tell the world how great you are if you can bring value to the world. And so doing it with the media, you're just doing it with a bigger speaker, right? So you have an obligation. If you have a great product or a great message, you have an obligation to go out in the media and use the media and work with the media to get the message out to a larger audience, right? And that's how I like to look at it. You're creating value. You're not self-promoting, you're creating value. And to talk about the flywheel is once that message is out there, before you know it, people, Dan Martell, if you want to talk about SaaS, anything to do with SaaS and building a SaaS company, Dan Martell. You want to talk about social media? It's Gary Vaynerchuk. You want to talk about PR? It's Adrian, right? So you got to create a category and become the expert.
How important is it when you look at what I've seen I think for me, the first time I saw the example was Crowdflower. They wanted to own the word crowdfunding or crowdsourcing, and then I think HubSpot with inbound.
Yep.
More recently, Drift with conversational marketing. Yep. I don't know what even that is. That a category creation?
Yes.
How important is that? Is that
very
okay? But do you need that, or can you latch onto somebody else's? Do you need to create your own word?
You want to be the category king. If you want to be the category king, the best way to do it is to create the category.
Write the rules.
Right? Write the rules, create the new category. Yeah. And those are all good examples. Drift, Salesforce with CRM and the cloud-based CRM, and they created the cloud, right?
No more
Did
software.
they invent the cloud? No. But they
called it the cloud.
They called it the cloud.
Yeah.
And the cloud's been existing forever. It's called the internet. But they were remarkable at saying, no, we
so
created
true,
this.
Man. It was
right?
just the
we
internet.
invented this.
Yeah.
And so it's often, there's a great book and a great guy named Christopher Lockheed. He's a fellow Canadian, former CMO of Adobe. Christopher Lockheed, shout out to Christopher, great guy. He has a book, 2 books actually that are really great. Niche Down is his latest book.
Great book, yeah.
But the best book, one of the best books I've ever read is Play Bigger. Right? And it's about becoming a category king. How to create a category, even if it already exists, renaming it and making it your own category. Yeah. And then people will pay attention to you because they're like, I haven't heard of that. What is that?
Well, I had Wes Bush on recently, and he was talking about product-led growth, and I'm like, it sounds like just like it doesn't, and it's like, but it is and it isn't, and that was kind of the joke is like now there's this thing called product-led growth, which is just free trial or freemium.
Yes. It's huge.
Yeah.
Right?
But you just got to give it a name.
Yes.
Sometimes we think it's a thing, but as soon as we give it a name, it becomes a handle that people can now
that
talk about.
Others use when
the lean startup.
Correct.
Now is a thing.
Yes. Yes. And that's one of the first things you told me is like if you're going to create a thing, you need to name this a reverse media search, or you need to give it your techniques a name, and you do that for every.
I create a lot of frameworks,
right?
Because to me, it's without it. Again, goes back to that handle. If your goal in education is to have somebody not only learn but retain, and the key, this is like my ultimate goal. If I've done it right, that they can explain it to somebody else and get it 80% right. Then I know that I've taught it well. And one of the fundamentals is that it's a name. It's got to have, like the PR flywheel. Like now, I remember seeing the diagram and all the different.
Yeah,
PR
it's funny,
outlets.
right? How our brains work. If you create a tag or a story, it'll stick, and if you don't, it gets forgotten.
Yeah, well, it's almost like it's funny, but it's probably why we all have names.
You know what? Yeah, otherwise you'd be forgotten.
Well, there's just nothing. Our brain needs to take everything about the thing and put it into some placeholder,
like a little envelope in your brain. You're right.
We got to write a name on it, and that could just be like the thing. And everybody should read those books because no matter what category they're in, there are probably some low hanging fruit, something around them that they could be like, you know what? And I guess this is what. When I look at inbound conversational marketing, it's self-serving, but there also needs to be a trend. Like there needs to be, you wouldn't. It's almost like you want to attach yourself to a rocket ship, not an anchor. You know what I mean? Like it's got to have forward movement. So maybe look at the search term volume around some of this stuff to see what's. You know what I mean? Like, is there value in like when Bitcoin's getting big? You talk about.
Have you noticed that none of these movements have had any search before? In fact, like inbound wasn't a thing, right?
No, they created. It was just called SEO.
It was So they created
content marketing. It was actually called content marketing.
It was just content marketing. They rebranded it as something that, in fact, it's the less search volume there is for that term, the better. In other words, you want to create the category so that when people type in inbound, you own it. You own inbound.org. It's your thing, right?
Yeah.
Now you own it, and now there's a movement built around it.
See, that's the key is the movement.
Yeah.
It's almost like you want to own the word and then give it away as much as you can, and you hope somebody grabs it and is like, I like that product-led growth idea. Let me go,
write
talk
a blog
about it
post
myself.
Exactly. So I would say the opposite. I don't think you want to latch on to an existing, because it's going to be too hard when you latch on to it, unless it's some sort of niche that has a ton of search traffic but not a lot of relevancy.
Yeah.
But in most, if you look at almost all these examples, right? Conversational marketing, inbound, et cetera, there's lots of examples. They created that niche. They created that search volume. The search volume didn't exist
But the key is
before.
they created a movement. They didn't say I need to own this.
Yeah.
I'm going to empower it, and if other people want to run with it, become consultants around it, write books around it,
Yes.
I should almost support it.
Yes.
That's
Totally.
fascinating.
Totally. Like the guy from Brand's story. That's actually one of the most when people buy free PR, they buy the book Brand Story for whatever. It makes sense. It makes sense. The most purchased.
Yeah, they want to learn how to tell stories.
They have created an entire licensed platform
around Brand Story.
Yep. And then they have consultants that can sign on to become Brand Story certified.
Yep.
I mean, how powerful is that, right?
Yeah.
And so authors can do it with creating platforms around their books. Brands can do it by creating conferences, by creating movements, right? Drift, amazing company for that. You know, they've created books.
I was just impressed how quick they executed.
Yes.
Like
came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it's just like they got the books, hyper growth. They got conversational marketing. I think it was one of the top books this year. You know, like they did the conference. Like literally But again, David and the team, they're all incredible marketers.
Yes.
It's like they've done this before. But it's just like, it was really impressive watching just how quick they were able to execute. I believe you worked with Cameron as a business coach during the CanvasPop.
Yep.
When you look back over that journey, let's call it 10 years, from a personal growth point of view, who did you need to become, Adrian, to be the person to create that business?
Yeah, I mean, there's really a difference between being the creator, the craftsman, the artist, and the operator, right? And so I thought I had to become the operator to become a great business person. I thought, okay, I hate accounting. I'm not big into, finance, and I'm not into that side of the business. So I'm going to force myself to be a better manager. I'm going to force myself to become a better finance person. I think it's more less about who you need to become as to who you need to partner with, right? And so my belief now, looking back over 10 years, is coaches are great at helping you identify your strengths and your weaknesses and giving you some been there, done that type advice to help accelerate your growth. But one of the things I've learned, and I'm going to do this, if I want to do it again 5 times faster.
This is the way we're doing it.
The way I'm going to do it is absolutely be self-aware. Know where your weaknesses are, and find the best people to complement your weaknesses, right? Don't just partner with a friend because you want to help them out or you want to work with them. Don't find anyone like you. You don't even have to, you have to like them, but you don't have to be best friends with them. In fact, try not to be best friends with them, and try to just find the people that complement your skill set the best. So find your void, hire them so you can focus on what what comes to you effortlessly and what you're really incredible at. And you focus on your swimming lane and get other people in their swimming lanes. And that's how you're going to get, Drift-like growth, Shopify-like growth, right? By everyone focusing. And that's the big lesson learned. Don't try to force yourself to do stuff you're not good at. Like, that's it. That's the bottom line for the next startup.
Adrian, one of the things I, love about you is your energy is infectious, man. You're an ideas guy.
Same.
You're always, you're always challenging and pushing, and you see the bigger picture. Many times when we sit down, I'm like doing this thing, and you're like, but what about this and what about that? And you're so generous, man. Like, you came and spoke at my event continuously. Are one of my biggest fans. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate it.
Hey, man, it's mutual. I love you, and keep bringing the great value and teaching entrepreneurs what you do. I always get great feedback from everyone that works with you or comes around you. I highly recommend what you do to everyone I know in the SaaS space. So the respect is definitely mutual, brother.
Adrian, appreciate you, man.
Hey, man.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching this episode of Escape Velocity. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment with your biggest insight from our conversation. Be sure to check out the next episode.